It takes a village, integrating firehouse hubs to encourage cooperation among police, fire, and the public. A CHDS self-study module by Greta Hurt. Hello, everyone. My name is Greta Hurt from the Tulsa Fire Department, and I wanted to talk to you today about my CHDS thesis project and research question from a few years back. At that time, I was a district chief for my department, and I wanted to know if our firehouses could bring people together. Specifically, I wanted to know if using a firehouse as a hub location for police officers could enhance their awareness and relationships with the citizens who lived and worked near the firehouses, while also improving the safety, cooperation, and efficiency between the officers and our firefighters. Around the same time I was applying for the CHDS Master's program, the Tulsa Police Department made the national headlines, and not in a positive way. A fairly new Tulsa police officer with less than 5 years on the force had been involved in a shooting that resulted in the death of an unarmed African-American male citizen. Part of my city was grieving, part of it was angry, and our police officers were just trying to survive the backlash of it all. There were differing perspectives, narratives, and opinions from the police side, the citizen side, and even from my coworkers on the fire side. It seemed like the entire city was being pulled in every direction. At the time of the shooting, I had just become a district chief and had served the majority of my career as a firefighter. However, I had also spent the last 3 years working in law enforcement as a fire investigator. My experiences serving as a sworn Tulsa police officer, as well as the training I had to complete during the 6-month Tulsa Police Academy, definitely gave me a unique perspective on the issue and important differing viewpoints as both a firefighter, a police officer, and also as a community member. Around that same time, Tulsa wasn't the only law enforcement agency in the headlines. Other instances of officer-involved shootings seemed to be on the rise across the nation, as were race riots, officer ambushes and deaths, and officer and firefighter suicides. All these things together left me wondering how the issues faced by my city would ever be resolved and how I could help. As I thought about all of these issues and the differences in the interactions I had with the public, both as a firefighter and as an officer, and all of the experiences I had together in these roles, I wondered how police and firefighters might come together to work more cooperatively, enhance each other's safety, and improve existing relationships with the public. I hypothesized that if firefighters and police officers could form more personal relationships, these bonds could in turn increase both groups' knowledge, safety, efficiency on calls, community-oriented approaches, and ultimately improve relationships with the community. I kept visualizing symbiosis, and the images that came to mind were pictures of mutually beneficial relationships found in nature, like clownfish and coral, and cattle and egrets. I hypothesized that firefighters, police officers, and citizens could also be in a type of mutually beneficial relationship, and that the firehouse could bring these groups together. For my research on this hypothesis, I focused my methodology on how existing community-oriented approaches used by police and fire might be improved, and how police officers could get to know the people in their beat areas. More specifically, I centered my research around a concept I had heard about from a few years back in Richmond, Virginia, coined the Village Fire Company model. The Village Fire Company model is basically an older, more personal twist on today's modern community risk reduction model for the fire service. In the early days of the fire service, firefighters were responsible for every aspect of their village or city. This meant taking care of the citizens' fire protections needs, as well as anything else they might need help with. Firefighters of old weren't just viewed as city officials, but as trusted neighbors and friends who helped in any way needed to protect and care for the citizens of their community. I noticed that while many things had changed about the American fire service over the years, most firefighters still went out of their way to assist their neighbors in any way possible, and the public still generally had a positive view of firefighters. My research also led me to try to understand current public perceptions of law enforcement. I found that these perceptions, both good and bad, seem to ebb and flow with time, but that police officers as a whole are often not trusted by the collective public, especially those in particular cultures and races. I wanted to know how trust and relationships could improve between officers and the public. As I thought about the Village Fire Company and how police officers might fit into the model, the popular 60s TV series Andy Griffith and the community of Mayberry came to mind. This black and white image of Sheriff Andy Taylor and Officer Barney Fife and the citizens and criminals of Mayberry led me to think more about the possible relationship benefits of officer foot patrols and how having access to a hub within the neighborhood, such as a fire station, to park their vehicles, use the restroom, collaborate, form friendships, or even grab a cup of hot coffee at a firehouse could also place the officers in close proximity to the neighborhoods they serve, and that this arrangement might also increase their exposure and potential positive interactions, not only with the firefighters to improve safety and mutual call efficiency, but with the public as well. But the question was, could bringing these three groups together using the firehouse as the catalyst really work in today's polarized America? This is the question I wanted to find out, and to do this, I needed to talk to people. My research design centered around four main areas. The first part of the research entailed phone interviews with retired fire chiefs Robert Creasy and Chris Garrett, both formerly of Richmond, Virginia. These chiefs worked together years ago to essentially coin the term the Village Fire Company and to develop this back to basic concepts within their fire department. The second and main area of my research involved focus group discussions with three different distinct groups to brainstorm ideas and gain perspective. 30 total subjects were contacted and 24 participated as part of the three discussion groups: Tulsa Police Department, Owasso Fire Department, and the citizens of Tulsa. The Owasso, Oklahoma Fire Department was chosen as a substitute for Tulsa due to IRB restrictions, and also because former Owasso Fire Chief Chris Garrett, who was formerly of Richmond, Virginia, had also instilled the Village Fire Company concept at Owasso after relocating there from Virginia. The third area of my research involved appreciative inquiries of a few select Tulsa Police and Fire Department joint endeavors, and also researching information on police departments across the nation who had been successful with community-oriented approaches, specifically foot patrol operations. And finally, the last area of my research investigated how the Firehouse Hub concept might work within City of Tulsa neighborhoods, utilizing Tulsa fire stations, which were also located within Tulsa precincts. All of my research turned out to be thought-provoking and revealing in many ways, but by far the most meaningful and intriguing part of the research was the focus group discussions and conversations. Sitting down and visiting with my colleagues in both the police and fire departments, as well as gaining honest, sincere, and insightful information from the citizen group, was time well spent. My research reinforced what I already knew. All groups and people essentially want the same basic things: positive relationships, to be treated fairly and justly, cooperation, safety, and understanding. I found that even when there is agreement on wants and needs, and even if there is agreement on how a concept might work, things often stop here. Differing opinions, personalities, and attitudes, as well as the follow through and work involved for change, is really where the difficulties lie. I did come away from the focus groups with a feeling that the participants left the conversations with a new sense of understanding, empathy, and appreciation for the other groups. This gave me hope for the future of my city. As far as my investigation of the logistics of incorporating the Firehouse Hub concept within City of Tulsa neighborhoods, I found that this part was absolutely doable. However, making the brick and mortar and technology part work was the easy part, since police and fire already share some city functions like IT, building maintenance, etc. As always, what makes humans who they are, with complex abilities to think, feel, form opinions, have emotions, is also what causes conflict among them. I found that the human element between two distinct groups coming together in one space would possibly be the most challenging component of the Firehouse Hub concept to overcome. So, will incorporating the Village Fire Company model to encourage relationships among police, fire, and the public by using the firehouse as a catalyst work in your village, town, or city? I say yes, and I say maybe not. I think it will ultimately come down to how open-minded the firefighters, officers, and leaders of a given department are, and if they buy into the concept. For my city, as mentioned earlier, the building arrangements and logistics were definitely the most promising and could absolutely work. But after discussions with all three groups and also my personal knowledge of the general mindset of both groups, I'm not sure the concept would achieve a total buy-in if it was incorporated in the city all at once. I still completely believe the idea will work, but I also believe it has to be on the officer and firefighters' terms. I believe the idea could pick up steam if at least one fire captain who has an existing friendship with one police officer would give it a trial run. For the concept to have widespread citywide success, however, I believe the concept shouldn't be forced, but definitely encouraged by top brass from both departments and taught to new police and firefighter officers and recruits as a possibility to improve their efficiency and knowledge. My recommendation for Tulsa was to incorporate the Firehouse Hub concept as a pilot program in just one area of the city, Tulsa Fire District 4 and Tulsa Police Gilcrease Division. This is yet to occur. The somewhat lack of interest from my department and city has led me to additional questions. Is cooperation and peace among different groups in this day and age really wanted? And if so, with so many polarizing opinions and viewpoints among society today, is widespread cooperation and relationship forming among those with differing backgrounds even possible? Could officer foot patrols at least increase awareness and knowledge of the happenings in communities? Or could it truly lead to reductions in crime and threats to the neighborhood and ultimately the homeland? Or are all these things just wishful thinking? The answer to these bigger questions, I'm not so sure of. Hopefully, if you're interested in this topic, you'll find out some of those answers. I hope you've enjoyed my module. Please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions or if you'd like to know more. Again, my name is Greta Hurt with the Tulsa Fire Department. My email is girlfirefighter@yahoo.com, and that's with 2 R's. And my number is 918-813-3578.